All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm John, an alcoholic. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, I'm
Thanks, John.
John, an alcoholic. I consider it a privilege to be able to be on this meeting with you fine folks. And Stephen asked me to share a little bit of my story. And in my story, you'll hear about the God of my understanding, and you'll hear me refer to him. My sobriety date is 11/28 of 06, and I'm grateful for Alcoholics Anonymous, for has surely saved my life. I'll start out as a young man. As a young man, I said to y'all a few minutes ago, I was raised out here in the mountain, and I still have the farm where I was raised on, and we didn't have a whole lot. A lot of my problems started early in my thinking. Early on, I started, a lot of people around us was pretty well off, and like I said, we didn't have a great lot, and we worked hard to have what little we got, and me and my brother both was told many times from people in the community that we would never amount to nothing, and we just would never be nobody. And I got that start right there early on in my life. It was put in my head early, and as I went through school, I did get through the 12th grade, and then 4 years of technical school, and I become a pipe welder, and that's what I've done to make a living for myself and my family. And I started drinking at about 11 or 12 years old. I had my first drink. Tell you just a little bit about my mom was a homemaker. My dad, he taught me everything that I probably shouldn't have needed to know. He'd never went to school a day in his life, and what he knowed about was he taught me how to make liquor. He taught me how to do all those things that was against the law. And the thing about it, at an early age, I liked all that, and I did it, and I got good at it, and as I come on through school, other things was introduced to me, and I was partaking in that. But in 1981, I was fixing to graduate high school, and I had a daughter. Me and my first wife got married real early, well, right before we got out of school. And I do want to say to you tonight that this disease is still rampant. That 41-year-old daughter that me and Ann had in 1981, we buried her December the 31st of this year because of our disease. And as I went on, when I got out of school, I was good at what I got me a good trade. I was good at what I did, been good at it all my life. But you see, everything, alcohol and stuff I had it I didn't do anything. I didn't go anywhere. It was my best friend. Me and Ann, my first wife, we made it about 5 years, and I drank and carried on, and I took good care of my young'un. I did do that, but she never did really have a daddy, because I run the road and welded that pipe, and I was gone a lot, and I don't know if any of you know about the construction business back in the day. You done about whatever you wanted to. Well, that marriage dissolved, and I carried myself right on through life, and I share it many times that listen, when the police around your hometown know you by your first name, you've been in there too many times, and that was just who I was. People people when I come around, and people, they just scattered from me because everybody knew. I didn't know it. Listen, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't have nobody to help me. I felt like, I was doing the best that I could do as I traveled through life. But every time something would happen, that I would count on the alcohol and stuff. I would run and hide, and I'll tell you, my mom, me and my brother, we went to, she saw that we got to go to church. Now, they took us to church, but they never went with us. And, I make this statement quite often that, I don't know, growing up, our mom and dad ever did tell us that they loved us. They come from the old school, and they figured if there was food on the table and a roof over your head, I guess they figured that was love enough, and it's okay with me. But I continued to progress like the good alcoholics we are. And I got into another marriage, and listen, had another child. Her name is Morgan. I want to share this with you. On December the 31st, when we buried Brenda, we also celebrated Morgan's 24th birthday. So I tell you, it's been a year. In the last few months, I just got to, I don't never look for no sympathy. I don't need no sympathy, but my AA friends, they love on me. And the thing about it is, the seeds that I sowed back in an early age has followed me. And through the years, I'm a little over 16 years clean and sober. And through the years, I'm working steps. I've got a good sponsor. I've had a couple sponsors. I've had a couple to die. And my sponsor now is Herb Barr. He's got 51 years sobriety, and I talk with him every day. And if it hadn't been for him, I don't know what would be. But that relationship through alcohol and drugs dissolved too after a while. But I still made sure that I worked and took care of my daughter. And this is pretty typical stuff, that you hear. But life went on. I continued on. That I had never reached a bottom. It was still working for me, I thought. Even though the dysfunction that I was causing in the job place and home, whatever it may be, it was, it still hadn't stopped working. And I went on, and I want to share this with you. I was down here at AFG, a big glass plant, and I was welding some pipe in there, and I met Miss Vicky, my wife that I have today. We'll be married 20 years in a few months. But I met Miss Vicky there, and she had no clue that I was a addict and alcoholic, and we hooked up. And as a good con man and all that, I hid all that stuff, and next thing you know, we got married. And she had a little 7-year-old daughter. Matter of fact, she's sitting in there right now. She's married and got a good husband, but she likes old John. She comes see old John every day, and I love her. And Morgan lives out of town, and we Vicky and I got together. In about 2 years, she couldn't figure out. I was between jobs. When you're welding that pipe, sometimes you run out of work, and it'll be a week or two before you get something going. I was out there at the house. I'd build us a log house, and she was going to work. And I'd say, if you don't care, bring me in a case of beer when you come in this evening. And she ought to called on in, and she said, "What happened to that beer that I brought in yesterday?" I said, "Well, I drunk that." But she never did. For a while, she never did catch on, and when she did start catching on, I remember this right here. She had made in 2006. she had got us tickets to go to the Macy Day Parade. And I was on the couch in a stupor, and I couldn't go, and her and Alyssa went on. And when they come back on Monday, I was sitting there in the same place, just about where I was when she left. And she didn't go to work. And I said, Vic, ain't you going to work? And she said, no, John. She said, I prayed about it, and me and Alyssa just can't stay here and watch you die. And I sat right there while they packed up their stuff and left. And about 2 days later, my precious mommy come by. And we talk about angels in the fellowship down here in our fellowship. We do. God sends angels, and my precious mommy loved me and my brother like they wasn't never going to be anybody else. And she come by the house to see me. And she said, Johnny, what's wrong? She seen that things wasn't right. And I told her, I said, Mom, just give me a couple of days, and I won't none of you have to worry about fooling with me anymore. And boy, she got mad. She said, I don't think so. And she got a hold of the doctor, and the doctor got me hooked up with a place in Knoxville, Tennessee called Cornerstone of Recovery. And I went through that program down there, and they got me dried out and got me started on the steps. And I met a little fella by the name of Tony C. And I couldn't understand it, but Tony C., he took a liking to me. And I didn't understand why, because he checked me in that night when my brother took me down there in 2006. When my brother took me down there, Tony, I never will forget it, long as they stripped me down, set me in a wheelchair because I couldn't hardly walk. Tony C. walked to the door and was talking to my brother. And the last thing I heard my brother say is, I ain't been able to believe nothing Johnny had to say for the last 20 years. And he didn't come in there and tell me bye or nothing like that. Tony C. walked to the door, and he just stood there and laughed. He just stood there and looked at me and laughed. And I thought, what? I looked at him, I said, what in the world are you laughing at? And he said, Johnny, you should just see yourself right now. Man, what a wake-up call at that gentleman. I was in the detox for 14 days and then wonder who's going to be my counselor. Nobody but sweet Tony C. You see, God puts people in your life right when you need them, but we have to have a mindset. We have to have a mindset to understand who they are. I didn't have that mindset at that point, but he liked me. He took a liking to me, and I'd go to my classes, and we'd go out every night. They'd bus us to different AA meetings, and we'd go out, and when I'd get back, Tony should have already been at home, and I'd be sitting out there doing my homework, and he'd come out there and he'd sit down beside of me, and he'd tell me, he'd say, now here's how things is going to be. And he'd help me. He'd just help me. I didn't understand it. Well, I went through that whole process. I went through that whole process, and Tony C. said, John, I need for you to stay 6 more months. And I said, Tony, I can't stay 6 more months. I got 50 head of cows standing up here on the hill, and I got no idea if they've been fed since I left them down here. And he said, I'll let you go under one condition. If you get up there and you get jammed up, you'll call me, and I'll have your bed ready to get back down here. And I promised him I would. You see, I never had nobody to put their arm around me. I never had nobody to put their arm around me and tell me that they love me, especially a complete stranger. And that little old Tony C. down there, man alive, and they got me set up to leave, and Vicky had left me. But you know what? She got to coming down there when she found out I was getting some help. Praise the good Lord. She got to coming down there and going through some of that stuff with me. And she and Alyssa brought me home. And I got hooked up with the Serenity Improvement Group. I was at a meeting the next morning after I got home. I made my first meeting, Stephen Todd, chaired the first meeting in Tennessee that I ever sat in at the Serenity group. That's my home group. And he allowed me to share. And you know, the thing about it is, friends, I was still wrung out and hurting from the things from my past. And I got to crying and sharing, and that went on for a week or two. And I never will forget, this little man stood up one day. He was sitting right beside of me. His name's Louis Dean from Ohio. He's an ex-bank robber. He just turned 94. Louis did. And we said the going out prayer, our prayer. And when we got that said, Louis Dean just wheeled right around in front of me, and I had to look down at him. He's a little short fella. And he said, Johnny, he said, you got a sponsor yet? And I said, no, Louis, but I'm a looking. And you know, the truth of it was, I wasn't in no shape. I hadn't looked. And he knew it. And he said, I'm going to be your sponsor. And he said, I want to tell you something. Here's what I want you to do. He said, I want you to take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth. And I'm going to tell you when you got something that you need to speak on in here in AA. And you know what? I respected that man. I done just exactly what that man told me to do. We'd meet at the donut shop, and I'd buy us a coffee. It wasn't my sponsor buying us coffee. I made good money. I'd buy us a coffee and a donut. And you know, for the first year, friends, I won't share this with you because it's worth sharing. With the people that I sponsor today, it's very important. For the first year of my recovery, I didn't work no steps. I went to 2 and 3 meetings a day, and through Louis Dean's help, we worked on my subconscious mind for the whole first year that I was sober. All we did is he taught me how to protect my mind. He taught me how to lay down, what to listen to. He taught me when to get up, what to pray, what to say, what to do. The man took me by the hand just like I was a little kid. You know, the fact of the matter of it is, when we get into AA, we are a little kid. My coping skills, you know, I started drinking at 11 or 12 years old. I didn't have any coping skills. And that precious man got sick, and he couldn't take me. He couldn't be my sponsor no more. So Ben Humphreys, I don't know, Ben Humphreys he died with about 37 years sobriety. He took me on, and he took me through them precious steps, man. I'm telling you, listen, we sat down, we do steps. I never will forget it. We come to that 3rd step, and we got down on Ben, got me by the arm, and we got down on our knees, and he prayed, and I listened. And when we got up, he was big old, he didn't shed too many tears, but they were 2 or 3 big old crocodile tears come out of his eyes, you know. And he, listen, for some reason, he took a liking to me. And you know, 2 or 3 other of them old men, I call them old, I mean they were long in the fellowship. They'd been there for a long time. The most of them has died and gone on now. I never will forget when them men got around me in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and they put their arms around me, and they told me, they said, Johnny, let us love you till you can learn how to love yourself. What we just don't want you to drink or do nothing. Just keep coming back. And you know what? I kept coming back, and I kept coming back. And when I got into them steps, you know, I thought I knew God. But when Ben Humphreys took me through them steps, I had no idea what the God of my understanding would be. I had no idea who he was, what he was, and what he was capable of. But I'm telling you right now, through them steps, 1, 2, and 3, I work them every day. I do a moral inventory every day. I do a 10th step when I lay down of the night and clear out the gun and ask God to forgive me. But you see, you see, when we get clean and sober, that ain't the end of it. Life's just beginning. You see, I was 43 years old when I made it to God allowed me to make it to the center, to Serenity Improvement. And them old men and women, they helped me so much. I never will forget when Lana said, Johnny, you'll quit crying when you learn how to do the possible and let God do the impossible. And that you see a lot of this kind of stuff down here at Serenity Improvement. Well, I got sick, friends. I got sick with a liver disease, and I had to go to the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota. And they told me down here in Kingsport, I wasn't drinking. I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. Listen, I was just sick. It's part of the alcoholism. And they told me down here in Kingsport, this is all we can do for you. And so my precious wife lined us up a run up at Mayo Clinic. And I had to get all them, they done them needle biopsies and stuff, and I had to get all that stuff together. And I'm telling you all this to tell you that I didn't have to have a drink. I can sit here and talk about having a drink, but I didn't have to have a drink going through some bad stuff. But you see, I could have never done that without Alcoholics Anonymous. I would have been somewhere ready to die. But I went to the Mayo Clinic, and they put me through some rigorous tests and got things sort of squared away and sent me back to the house. And life was a life. I had getting some years behind me, and here I am going out and supporting people and doing 12 steps, going on 12-step calls, and the next thing I know, I find myself over at from church. They invited me over to a treatment center in Everett, Kentucky. There's about 120 women in that facility over there. They come out of the penitentiary. Know a little something about that. They come out of the penitentiary, and then they go through a 2-year system there to get them ready for going back out in the world. And that for some reason they liked me over there. Well, they asked me if I'd come back, and we went over and done a big coat giveaway and blankets, and I shared a little at the treatment center up there, and they asked me if I'd come back. Well, I said, yeah, I think I will if it'll be okay. I'd load up my whole recovery group. We'd go over there and share with them, have a meeting with them, and talk to them about the God of our understanding. And I got to looking back. That windshield is big because I'm going forward, but I got a little bitty rear view mirror that I look back at the back every now and then, and I have to make sure that enemy ain't attacking me. And listen, they asked me to come back, and you know what? Next thing I know, I've been going over there for 11 years and ministering to them sweet people over there and taking them that week. And man, I'll tell you right now, God will give you something to do besides drink and drug if you want to do it. And I tell them down there at the church, I speak of the church, our church. My brother's the pastor of our church. It's First Baptist in Jonesboro, Tennessee. I get up and testify to the goodness. There ain't none of yous in here ever told me that you love me. But my AA friends, about all of them, they ain't got no problem telling me they love me. They put their arms around me, and they help me through hard times, and I want you to pray for them. And listen, the Lord give us a little ministry, Joy and Recovery Ministries. We started that about 9 or 10 years ago. Now we have a trailer. We help these ladies get started out, getting their furniture and stuff. But staying clean and sober, no other way to do it other than service work than I found out. I get up of a morning and do my 1, 2, and 3. I take my youngest daughter to school. And I ask God to put somebody in my life today that I can be a help to. You know, I don't talk about nobody else's God, but I talk about the God of my understanding, because I want you to know, without the God of my understanding, through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'd have been dead a long time ago. Long time ago. And I'm so grateful for Alcoholics Anonymous, and my sponsor now, Herb Riley, his wife is, this may be a little bit off the topic, but his wife's got that dementia. She don't even know who she is. And I call him every day, and you know, he tells me, he said, Johnny, I've sponsored you for years. And he said, now I need you. And so I call him, and I don't share many problems with Herb anymore. You see, the program's taught me this. I don't share my problems with Herb much anymore, because I have a whole lot of people to talk to. I have a whole lot of sponsors. I have a whole lot of good friends in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm there today to let my sweet 87-year-old sponsor, I give him a shoulder to share on and cry on. And you know, he's told me many times, you know, as we go through this process, and recovery is a process. I listen, if I don't go through every day learning a little something about somebody or about the process of alcohol, I'm sliding backwards. My sponsor's been teaching me that for years and years. And there's one thing that I still hear from him regular, friends, that I'll share with you. Herb Riley says it well. He says, Johnny, you can't teach yourself something you don't know. And boy, I'll tell you right now, is that not the truth? I have had so many good people in my life since I got clean and sober in 2006. You know, I'll say this to you, a friend of mine that I went through the treatment center with, I will say this. We were sitting in the Serenity improvement group, and there's this fella, I can't even remember who he was. He was picking up 5 years, and I punched old Mark in the stomach. You know, I was brand new, or in the side. I said, that man there, he's a liar. Ain't no way anybody can stay clean and sober for 5 years. You know, that was just my mentality. And my sponsor, hers, that I have today, he said, Johnny, if you could have just wrote down some expectations that you'd have had out of life when you first got to AA, and then go back and look at them right now, boy, things would have been a whole lot different, wouldn't it? And I said, you know it would, Herb. You know it would. But I close this thing out here with just telling you that I had stomach cancer in 2019. And I was sitting right in yonder on the couch. Vicky took Lucy to basketball practice, and it was on Friday evening. Never will forget it, December the 15th, right before Christmas. And the gastro doctor, they checked my stomach, and they found what they thought was an ulcer, but it was cancer. And it was a type of cancer that there's no cure for. Radiation or chemo won't work on this type of cancer. And they told me here in Kingsport, and the reason I'm telling you all this, they told me here in Kingsport, all they could do was take my whole stomach out. My precious wife said, no, we need to get another opinion. So we went to Nashville, we went to Vanderbilt, and the sweet lady down there that operated on me told me, she said, I think I can help you. Well, by the grace of God, March the 23rd of 2019, I was under the knife for over 9 hours, and she was able to save a little bit of my stomach so that I wouldn't have to be on a feeding tube. And I said all that to say this right here. I don't care what kind of trials and tribulations people goes through. Alcoholics Anonymous and the God of my understanding and all my friends that's in the program got around me, and they prayed for me, and they took care of me. And I go back. It's wild that I'm doing this, because Vanderbilt called yesterday, and I go back February the 17th for my yearly check. They run me through all them tests. But you know what? I didn't, even them taking over 80% of my stomach out, when I got to the point that I didn't need no I didn't need no more pain medication and stuff like that right there, I told them, you got to stop it. You got to stop it. You got to stop it right now. I told you all this to tell you I didn't have to have a drink or a drug to get through that. Not one time. Not one time. I had friends that would surround me, and my AA friends. Look here, I had some out of the program come all the way from up here all the way down there to Nashville, and they walked in the room down there when I was trying to heal up. And you know, it's so beautiful, friends. I wished I could put it in. I know I ain't done it no justice. I ain't done AA no justice tonight, because I truly don't have the words that I can tell you what Alcoholics Anonymous is, because it's the most beautiful thing that's ever been for my life. And I know for a lot of the other people, it's in my wife. We was going to church the other morning, and we stopped at the red light up yonder, and we were talking about it, and she started crying, you know, and she said, all I've ever wanted is to have my husband and to have him clean and sober like I have him now. Yet who would ever thunk it that an old drunk could have a recovery ministry? Who ever thunk that an old drunk could teach Sunday school? Who'd ever thunk any of that? Not me, friends. Because if I'd have wrote it down like Herb said, I would have missed it by a long, long shot. And I want to say to you friends, thank you for supporting me. Thank you for supporting Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you, most important, for being my friend tonight. And if ain't nobody told you today that they love you, I love you. Thank you for having me.